In the Pirkei Avos, in the sixth Mishnah, the first parak, Mishna says, Yeshua ben Prachya Omer Asel L'charav. Says, make for yourself a rabbi. Kanel l'cha chaver. He says, acquire for yourself a friend. Vavidan is called ha'adam l'kafschos, and judge everyone favorably. So, what is the explanation of make for yourself a rabbi, acquire a friend? We're going to see about this. We're going to see Sefarim are our friends. We're going to learn about that. Is it better to learn Torah by oneself with a chavrusa or in a group with a friend? What is a good friend? How our pen needs to be a friend? What does it mean to judge everyone favorably? And how do we connect all of these statements in the Mishna together? Let's go straight into what it means you should make for yourself a rabbi. Rashi explains you shouldn't learn from your own logic. You should learn from a rabbi. Rabbi Yoina says, even if you're as smart as your rabbi, you should still appoint him as a rabbi, because you're going to remember the material more when you hear it from your rabbi as opposed to if you just learn it by yourself. Also, it should be pointed out that a person can't see a person can't see his own flaws. The rabbi will point it out as well. Vajami Bartanu explains that one should learn from one rabbi. Don't go from one rabbi one day and then another to the next day. You stick with one. What about the Gemara in Avodah Zarah? The Gemara in Avodah Zarah on Yud Tes says someone who learns Torah from one rabbi is not going to see a sign of blessing. He's not going to see a siman bracha. That's only referring to svara. That's only referring to something logic, not Gemara, which is better from learning from one rabbi when it comes specifically to Gemara. You stick with one rabbi that you like and you stay with him. See, take a look at Taisus Dibra Masel, the Gemir in Eruvin on Nun Gimel Alf. The Gemara in Eruvin says over there on Nun Gimel Alf that the people in Yehuda learned from one rabbi and they ended up being successful, unlike the people in Galil who learned from multiple rabbis. So we see one rabbi is good. Similarly, the Avos Rabbi Nasan as well in Ches and then Beis relates that Rabbi Meir says that someone who learns from one rabbi is compared to someone who plants wheat, barley, olives, and other trees in one field, which is good. They're all in one field. But if you learn from a lot of rabbis, it's going to be scattered all over the place. That's not going to be good. He's going to be all over the place. It's going to be scattered around without bracha. Ben Avram explains that someone who learns from many rabbis has, quote, a scattered soul, because each rabbi has a certain style and uses a certain language. Medrash Shmuel says that the previous Mishnah discussed how one should make his house a place for the rabbis to gather. Mishnah therefore teaches us that a lot of rabbis, if you're learning from them, that might not be too good. Too many rabbis are similar to, if you have a lot of different types of food and different types of wine, you're going to get sick from it if you eat so many different types of food at once. Akiva Mishnah says that learning from many rabbis is like putting many different types of spices in a dish. It's not going to taste good. Too many spices in that dish. Avos Rabbi Nasan then says that a good rabbi should teach you everything. Tanakh, Mishnah, Medrash, Halacha, got to everything. The sefer Musar Avos explains, what does it mean? Aselach a Rav. If you're about to sin, make yourself a Rav. Say, if you were a rabbi, would you do that? Make yourself a rabbi. Then you certainly won't sin. Bartanur explains that someone needs to pay. Why does it say, purchase a friend? You have to pay for a friend if you can't get a friend unless you pay. But for a rabbi, it doesn't say that. Bartanur explains that you need to pay for a friend, unlike a rabbi, because the Gemara in Nedarim says, there's a lot of answers to this question, by the way, on Lamed Zayin Amad Aleph, that a rabbi has to teach Torah for free. Hashem says, Mani b'chinam atav b'chinam. Just like I, Hashem, am free, so too you have to be free as well. This is Me'ikar Din, this is according to the letter of the law, yeah? One last idea, the Rima Toledo explains that someone who learns by himself, he's only going to learn what he thought of. But if you learn from your rabbi, you're going to hear ideas that you never thought of. That's why those are all ideas behind why it's important to learn from the rabbi. Now we're going to go to a shuir within a shuir. This is a tangent off of this Mishnah, but it's very important. If you open up Rashi on this Mishnah, on this line of Kanel Chaver, acquire for yourself a friend, Rashi says, Amri la Sefarim. Rashi says, what does a friend mean? A friend means Sefarim. And then what does Rashi say? V'amri l'chaver mamish. Then Rashi says it's an actual friend. So you see that according to Rashi's first explanation of what a chaver means, it's Sefarim, holy books, Torah. We have to talk about this. We're going to have to break this down now. Sefarim are our friends kissing Sefarim. Beautiful story with Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Which Sefarim should be in our house? Sefarim are, it's like jewelry. It's like an ornament. It's something special. We're going to learn about it. It's going to be worthwhile to buy a sefer if it has one good idea. We're going to learn about Sefarim our life. Is it mutter? Are we allowed to even sell Sefarim? Are we allowed to take Sefarim out of Israel? Practical halachos about honoring Sefarim, actual Sefarim versus digital Sefarim, aka Otzach Lachma. I'm going to break it down into all those categories. Rashi says, we already spoke out, Rashi. A chaver is a friend. Perhaps Rashi explains the word chaver in the Mishna, Meloshin chibor. It's like the language of chibor. What's chibor? It's a book. The Mishnah would then read saying like this, acquire for yourself a chibor, a book. However, the simple understanding of Rashi is that a sefer is a Jew's best friend. A sefer possesses intrinsic holiness. There's kedusha. A sefer is holy, and therefore it has to be treated in a holy way and with love. Every single Jewish child is taught that if a sefer chas v'shalom falls on the floor, that he has to pick it up immediately and kiss the sefer. It's interesting to note that Rabbi had a whole different custom over here. Rabbi Zatzal, you know what he did when a sefer fell on the ground? When a sefer fell on the ground, he would pick it up and learn from it. Sefarim, they are a primary connection to Torah, and it's the greatest honor and respect to learn from Sefarim. That's what Rabbi would do. He'd pick it up and learn from it. This is in the introduction to the great Jewish classics. Rabbi Menachem Mendel Pam, he was the grandson of Rabbi Pam. And one time he said that Rabbi Pam called him up, Rav Avram Pam, when he was old, and he said, please come over and help me put away some of the Sefarim that are piled up in the dining room over here. Help me bring them down to the basement. When he came, he saw Sefarim, and they were cluttered on every single flat surface, every single chair, every single table in the dining room. Rabbi Pam said, you see these Sefarim? I've been so lately with calls. I've been so busy lately. People were calling me, my health issues. I've been having such difficulty. I haven't had time to learn. He was older. He wasn't so healthy. He got colds. So Rapam said, but many of these Sefarim, they were given to me by the authors who wrote these Sefarim. Rapam said, how can I insult these wonderful people who spent their time learning Torah and writing their insights, their chidushim, without even learning one thing from them? So his grandson says, before we put the Sefarim downstairs, and I put them away, we learned from each sefer. We took every single sefer and we learned the shtickle Torah from the sefer. We learned a little bit from it. Why? So he said, we learned from it. This way we could show respect for the toil that the author put into the sefer. We could show them respect. Cover Torah, cover Sefarim. For the next 3 hours, they went through each sefer one by one. Amazing. Look at the sensitivity from such a Torah giant. Would anyone know if Rabbi wouldn't have learned from these Sefarim? Would one of the authors expect him to learn from these Sefarim in his condition that he was in? This is the sign of greatness. Showing people honor even when they're not learning from it. Rabbi Yehuda ibn Tibbon, probably never heard of him. He wrote a will to his son. Wrote a will. Who was he? He translated the Chayvas Avos, unbelievable special sefer from Arabic to Hebrew. He's the one who translated it. And his son, Reb Shmuel, by the way, translated the Moreh Nevuchim of the Rambam from Arabic to Hebrew. Credible translators. And he bequeathed, he gave as a Yerusha to his child. He gave him that what? A big library of Sefarim, a lot of Sefarim HaKadoshim. And he said, I'm giving you the Sefarim so you don't need to borrow. Baruch Hashem, you're in a position to lend, not to borrow. And he said, make your Sefarim your friends. Let your bookcases be your orchards and gardens. Stroll on their grounds. Pluck their roses and gather their fruit and spices, he said. It's like a garden. That's right. If your soul becomes... you're not into that garden, move to another garden and you'll desire that other garden. You're going to be refreshed. Your soul will be lifted. And he said, make sure you keep the library organized so that you know exactly where every single sefer is. Learn the exact location where every sefer is. Never refuse to lend out your sefarim to someone who can't afford to buy them, assuming that he could be trusted to return it. Take care of your sefarim. Protect them from any harm because they're your greatest treasure. When you lend someone a sefer, write it down. You're lending it to them. Before it leaves your house, write down the name of the sefer. And when the sefer is returned, cross it out that you got the sefer back. Every single Erev Pesach and Sukkot, get back all your sefarim that you lent out if possible. This is in Great Jewish Letters, page 114 to 115. Rabbi Eliezer Yehuda Finkel, he woke up very early in the morning and he saw that Rabbi Nassan Tzvi Finkel, he was over there and he was seeing how he walked over there Right? Reb Nosson Tzvi, excuse me, saw him how Rabbi Finkel, he walked to the Sefarim and he put his hands across them and he kissed the Gemaras on the shelf when he was up very early. Here's an Echoes on the Maggid, page 240. Nowadays, when we have a lot of Sefarim, and we're going to talk about this, it's considered, even if a person is learning by himself, that he's learning with someone else. That's what we see from this Mishnah. Comes along Rashi, a sefer is a chaver. So it's as if you're learning with a friend, yeah? That's the idea over here. The Chazon Ish was once asked why he learned by himself. He said, what do you mean? I'm not by myself. I'm with Sefarim. It's like I'm with someone else. That's what he said. That's the Chazon Ish. We get a tremendous amount of knowledge from these Sefarim. We're going to come back to that idea. In a traditional Jewish home, Sefarim are no less important than food. It's as essential as food. Even before children begin to even learn how to read, they're encouraged to develop their interest into learning and loving Sefarim. Rabbi Akiva Eiger, he told his son, use the best paper, use the best ink, use the best writing instrument when you're going to come to write your Sefarim. Because the physical beauty of the sefer is going to bring joy to someone who learns from it, and it will help his ability to concentrate and learn. This idea I saw in the 39 Avos halachos of Shabbos, Rabbi Baruch Shea, page 7. Listen to the story with Rabbi Akiva. Once upon a time, Rabbi Akiva Eiger was without any Sefarim. And it's explained, how could that happen that Rabbi Akiva didn't have Sefarim while he was traveling? He thought he was going to be right back. He got delayed. He ended up having to spend a night at the inn. That's why he didn't have any Sefarim. The innkeeper, Rabbi Akiva said, do you have any Sefarim for me? The innkeeper brought him the only sefer that he had. It was a Rashba and Yavamos. Some say it was a Rashba, one of the shilos and Chuvas at Rashba. That was the only sefer that he had. Rabbi Akiva Eiger, he began to learn with tremendous excitement until he reached a page that fell out. Rather than skip the page there on the spot, Rabbi Akiva took a pen and paper and he wrote in the missing page word for word what it was supposed to say on that page. Wow! Not only did Rabbi Akiva Eiger know Shas Baal Peh, but he knew either Rashba and Yavamos or Rashba and Shilos and Chuvas Baal Peh. He knew it all by heart. Impressive. Wow, what a great person. Yes, that's the idea. That's one lesson. But you know what another lesson is? Even though he knew it by heart, he still had to use the sefer. If you could use a sefer, you use the sefer. Another explanation is, could there be a Rashba in this world that's missing words? Maybe someone would come across and he would come across a sefer and he wouldn't have it. He wouldn't know what's going on that page. How could it be? This I saw already in a few Sefarim. It was in Maran Harav Avadja on page 480, as well as in other places as well. Reb Nosson Tzvi Finkel's biography on page 245. Which Sefarim should be in our house? Well, first we have to discuss women. You know what the Rivavos V'Yoivos says on pages 73 to 74? This is Rabbi Ephraim Greenblatt. He discussed over there women who don't like a lot of Sefarim in the house and don't allow their husbands to buy Sefarim. 2 words, bittul Torah. They are causing their husbands not to learn Torah. Why is there money to buy nice clothing, but for Stender and Sefarim there's not money? Good point. The Sefer Darchei HaGemara in Perek Vav Oz Tes says the following explanation. How could a person toil and learn Torah properly? He says a person's wisdom in chochmas adam elo ad makom shesvarim magim. A person's wisdom could only reach until where his sefarim bring him. You can only get as smart as what you're reading. Therefore, sell everything you have in order that you could buy sefarim. Someone who doesn't have sefarim cannot become an expert in that area. Only someone who has medical books could become an expert in medicine, a doctor. The best contractor and builder could only build if he has his tools. But if the builder doesn't have his tools, says the Shilos and Chuvas, Rivavos, Sefarim, and Chelik Beis in the introduction, this is the same Rabbi Ephraim Greenblatt, he can't build anything. So too by a Talmud Chacham. Scholar could only learn if he has his farm. The Pele Yoyitz writes in Erech Sefer, Rabbi Yezer Papel, he explains that purchasing farm is a major principle. Regarding a Talmud Chacham, just like a craftsman can't do his work, he doesn't have his tools, so too a scholar, like we just said. Our Sefarim are like our eyes. Without them, we can't pick up our hand to make any halachic ruling of any sort. The average layman, the average person is obligated according to his level to purchase Sefarim. He says the average Jew, he has to purchase commentaries on Torah, Musar, Sefarim, halachos Sefarim, Those who can read Hebrew should purchase in Hebrew. If you can't read Hebrew, do it in your primary language. By Sefarim on Tanakh, Mishna, Zohar, other Sefarim. And then the Pele Yoet says, don't worry about the cost. The cost is irrelevant. You'll get repaid. Gemara and Beitza and Tezayin. And he says, acquire truth and don't sell it. Emes kana v'al timchor. Don't sell Sefarim even if you don't know how to read them or if they're a duplicate set. That's fire. Emes timchor. Emes kana v'al timchor is in Chav Gimel. Even if it's duplicate, don't sell it. Only sell Sefarim to buy other Sefarim. It says in Sefer Chasidim, there was someone who had an extra Zohar and he sold it. Someone came to him in a dream and called him a behemoth, an animal. They told him the word behemoth stands for Beis, the Arta. Hey is HaKodesh. Mem is Min. And then the Hey is bias. The Arta HaKodesh Min HaBayis, you burnt, you destroyed the holy from the house, the holiness from the house. Buy Sefarim, lend them out also. Regarding this, the Gemara says that your righteousness will endure, will last forever, your holiness. The Gemara in Ksubas Dafnun, the Midrash says that some will get rewarded by having boys who will be wise by doing this. You know what Sefarim are? They're an interior decoration, but they're much more than that. They're an ornament, something beautiful. A chas is something beautiful. Show it to your visitors. They're going to say, what is this? They don't know what it is. You tell them, even if you don't learn from it, it brings up good conversation. It's a showpiece. This Rabbi Avigdor Zatzal writes in he says, and it was written in the Q&A in volume 1, page 204, every Jewish home should have Sefarim. Make a library in your house. Even someone who isn't a Talmud Chacham. Buy nice Sefarim as well. Line the walls with the house with Sefarim and shelves. Let the people living in that house see a Gemara, at least from the outside, every single day. Let them see something. Don't say we have one in the shul. The fact that the shul has electricity, lights, rugs, chandeliers, that doesn't stop you from getting it out of your house. So therefore, it shouldn't prevent you from getting Sefarim in your house as well. Today, many people have expensive furniture. You have expensive furniture? No problem. Then you have expensive Sefarim as well. Because it's an ornament. It deserves no less attention than these couches and the rugs. Even in the house, that there's not so much Torah in the house. The grandchildren might come along one day and say, what is this? This is in the Career of Happiness, page 61. You tell them, these are Sefarim. And you're going to get some respect from that. And your Sefarim are going to get some respect. Even if they're only used once in a while by a random person or by a son-in-law or a visitor, worth it to spend the money on the Sefarim. Listen to this idea. It's worth it to buy a sefer for one good idea. Someone once came to the Vilna Gaon asking for a haskam, a letter of approval for a new sefer he wrote, which is a commentary on the Siddur. The Gras saw that in the first Zemer was Adon Olam. And you know what he said? He read that we begin davening with Adon Olam. Why? Because Avram enacted Shachris. That was Avram enacted Shachris. Gemara in Brachos Chofav. The Gemara says that Adon was the first person to call Hashem Adon. We therefore begin Shachris with Adon Olam. That's what he said. That was the Torah idea that he said. Gemara in Brachos Daf Zayin says Adon was the first person to call Hashem Adon. The Vilna Gaon says if this was the only idea in the sefer, this one idea, it would be worthwhile to buy the sefer and give a haskam and give that letter of approval just for this one idea. One time, a Talmud came and he said a brilliant idea and explanation of a medrash that he came across in a random sefer. A Pam said it was worthwhile to buy this sefer just from this one idea. Same exact idea. This is in Rav Pam on page 103 in the footnote of 15 over there. The Chavos Das says in the name of an early Talmud Chacham that one good point makes a whole sefer worthwhile. That's in the Shtaipel on page 182. Sfarim are our life. Then it says the Olam's learning Makos over here. Then it Siv writes in his Shailus and Chuvas Meishiv Dover and Chelik Beis Simin Ayin Vav that Sefarim, necessary Sefarim for a Talmud Chacham, are his life. The Gemara Makos says Talmud Shagalim Agalim Rabu, that if a student, if he goes into the exile, the city of refuge, his Rebbi comes. Very good, Daf Yud. His Rebbi has to go with this. Why? The pasuk says Vachai. He has to live. This is his life. His rabbi's his life. Nowadays says the Nitziv, a Talmud Chacham Sefarim, they're considered his life. The Sefarim will come to him in Gullus as well. Are you allowed to sell a sefer Torah? The Rosh writes in his. So now we're talking just Sefarim, not sefer Torah. So the Rosh writes, this is in Menachos, in the back over there, in the halachos katanos, Hilchos sefer Torah Siman Aleph. There's regular Sefarim over here. He says it's a big mitzvah, he first says, to write a sefer Torah. You're only allowed to sell Torah if you're going to get married or to learn more Torah. Rambam also says it's a mitzvah for every Jew to write a sefer Torah. Fine. That's earlier generations they will learn from a Torah. Nowadays, says the Rosh, Nowadays, the Sifri Torah, what do? They just get left in the Aron Kodesh in the shul. No one's learning from them, right? What? No, they learn from them, but no one's learning from it. Learning from it, reading from it, but learning. Exactly, that's what the Rosh is saying. So the Rosh is saying it's a big mitzvah for every single Jew to sponsor new Sefarim that are coming out. The Rosh talks about Chumash, Mishnah, Gemara, commentaries, etc. But that
even duplicates.
exactly all of those. Yeah, the people are going to learn from the duplicates. And he says when you learn Gemara and the Mefarshim, you're going to know the mitzvahs of Hashem. You're going to know the halachos clearly. Now these are Sefarim that we have to write and purchase and not sell. You know what the Divrei Chamudus over there says? The Divrei Chamudus over there in Sifkat and Vav says, he quotes a Beis Yosef, Siman Reish Mem Ches, who says that the Sefarim aren't as stringent at a Torah. You could tell them if you want, if you need to. And we see people sell Sefarim all the time. So regular Sefarim, technically, you are allowed to sell, right? We saw before, the idea is from the Peleioids, Alpin Musar, it's better not to sell them unless you're going to buy a new Sefarim. But luckily you're allowed to. No, you definitely could, right? But you could sell them. Now, there's another shiloh which very few people know about. Are you allowed to sell? Are you allowed to take a sefer, Sefarim, out of Israel? So there's a shiloh. Oh, here it is. So there was someone who was learning Eretz Israel in Kolol, and eventually he got a sheller, he positioned as a revolve outside of Israel. He wanted to know if he was allowed to relocate his Sefarim outside of Israel or not, or maybe he wasn't allowed to. Maybe he wasn't allowed to. So what's the halach over here? He said it was very difficult for him to buy new Sefarim. So what's the halach? So in the Shilos and Shuvas Besel HaChachma, in Chelek Aleph and Siman Ayin Zayin, he has a beautiful shuva on this topic. And he says that there's a Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi, if you want to look it up in Sanhedrin, Perek Gimel Halacha Tes, says that Sefarim in Israel cannot be taken outside of Israel. But right now, Shilos Shuvas Halacha Tanot Chelek Beis and Siman Kuf Pei Zayin says this only applies to Gemaras and Midrashim, which are words of Chazal. However, poskim and mafarshim, they're not included in that. Now let's continue on in this. Hold it. Any sefer that enters into Israel can't be removed, even if it wasn't written there. It doesn't matter if it was written or not. If it was brought to Israel, you can't remove it. Those types of sefarim. Now, if it was brought to Israel with the intention that it might have eventually leave Israel, that you could take out of Israel. What if you went there without any intention? You didn't think if you were going to be leaving or not. You didn't know when you bought the sefer. So if you had in mind to stay there for a long period in Israel, then you it's relative, whatever a long period is, to years. If you intended to stay there for a long period, you can't remove it. But if you said you were only going to stay there for a short time, you could bring them out. Now, he says a line, Sefarim that are printed in Israel, they're all printed with the intention that they could very well be relocated out of Israel. So therefore, it's fine. It should be pointed out, the Rif, Rambam, Rosh, Torah, Shulchan Aruch, they don't quote this Yerushalmi as halacha. Anyone on the page of the Shulchan Aruch? Some explain the Yerushalmi never said this as a halacha, but even if the Yerushalmi did say it as a clear halacha, it could very well be that this was only back then, when Sefarim were very rare and expensive. Nowadays, that they're cheap, so therefore you could take them out, much cheaper than they used to be. However, since there are some who quote this Yerushalmi, we should be careful about it lechachila. And then he says you could certainly permissible, even according to Yerushalmi, to take Sefarim out of Israel with the intention of eventually bringing them back to Israel. Why? Why is the reason for this halacha it's prohibited to remove Sefarim maker adin? It's because that Israel should be settled, the land of Israel. Interesting, Shaila, could tzedaka money be used to purchase Sefarim? Nicer money. You know what the Shach says? Surprise, surprise. The Shach in Yoredeya in Hilchos tzedaka in Siman. That's right. The Shach in Yoredeya in Siman Reish Mem Tes Oz Gimel quotes the Maharshal and the Drisha, who say that you could buy and learn from this farm and use it for Meiser money. That's what he says. The Taz says that over there in the beginning of Reish Mem Tes of Katan Aleph, when someone buys a sefer with Meiser money, he has to write on the sefer that it was purchased with Meiser money in order that his children will know. The Aruch HaShulchan questions this over there in Osyud. He says if that would be so, then you could just buy anything with Meiser money. Talis, tefillin, shofar, esrog, sukkah. What's going on over here? All we need is just other people who are just going to lend it out, and they can use it. Because what are you talking about? Though? If you're going to say that that's true, then you could buy anything for mitzvah and just say it's being used for Meiser. So the Aruch HaShulchan says you shouldn't even come on to this. Comes along the Derech Hamuna. The Stipler over here mentions this idea. This is in Hilchos Matanos Aniyim in Perek Zayin Halacha Hey. He says over there that nowadays it's impossible. You cannot use Meiser money for Sefarim. Why? Back then, hundreds of years ago, there weren't so many Sefarim. Whoever had a sefer, he was constantly being bombarded. People asking, "Can I borrow your sefer? Can I borrow your sefer?" It was rare. It was very expensive, right? So therefore, the money for that could be used for Meiser. You're going to be lending it out a lot. Nowadays, everyone's got Sefarim. People don't lend. Right, you go to people, you go to any basement. People only lend farm out on rare occasion if it's a rare random safer that someone doesn't have. So therefore, it's considered just like anything else that we have in the house. Therefore, one cannot use stock of money to purchase farm nowadays. So a lot of it's a discussion, not so simple. Pashtus not. Practical halachos about honoring farm. There are a lot. All right. I just want to say one point. The Shachin Yordeya in Simin Reishai and Zion says you don't leave a room when you leave your safer open. You close the safer first. And he says that there's someone called Shade. Shade is a demon. Shade stands for Shoimer Dapen. He protects, he guards the pages.
Not a shandalit?
A shandalit, it's something that is brought down that could cause forgetfulness when you leave and you learn to leave a safer open. If you're gonna leave it open, leave it like this. Number one, number two, if it's left open, you can put in a safer on top of another safer, and then it will be like covered, so to say. So you could do that also a little bit as a trick. Look, there's a lot of halachos about honoring Sefarim that are very applicable. Take a look at the daily halachos discussion, pages 25 to 30. He has a whole arichos over there, tremendous amount of length. Over here, actual Sefarim versus digital Sefarim. Rav Shach said you can't kiss an oitzer chachma. You can't kiss the bar elan. Look, it's true, but a person cannot deny the power of 150,000 Sefarim. A person cannot, underemphasize the importance of 150,000 Sefarim in front of his eyes, at his fingertips, wherever he goes in the world. I use it all the time for preparing shuir, for my personal learning. What you're able to do with the technology is incredible. You make PDFs, you highlight, you can write comments on it, then you could screen share for everyone. It's literally incredible, and this is exactly why technology is created. But a sefer is a sefer, and it's something very, very special. It's better for your learning. You have to know. I know, for example, the way that I learn now, and I think this is the right way to do it. When I learn a topic, so what do? I make a file, a folder. Let's say I'm learning a simon, Reish Mem Beis we're doing right now in Helpful Shabbos. In the folder, I make PDF files. You could have 100 different sources of different files, all that apply. It's all gathered in that area. You back it up. It's there forever. And you underline and highlight the main things. Also, you have it all organized in one spot. You could put it there in one spot. It's not like you have 30 svarim on your table when you're going through something. And then when you put them away, it's hard to take them out again. It's always in the folder. It's easy to open. You could then write notes to organize all the ideas. It's the same thing with anything. With any type of learning that you do, you could organize it. That's right. So easy. We're talking about a chaver in this Mishna. Let's go back to the Mishna. Rabbi Yoina says, write this down. A friend is important for 3 reasons. Rabbi Yoina says, Torah. You learn Torah with him. Mitzvahs, meaning a good friend is going to tell his friend when he sees his friend is not doing the right thing, assuming he knows his friend is going to listen. Don't do that. Mitzvahs, or you can encourage him to do mitzvahs. And number 3, advice. He'll give you good advice. There's a shtickle controversial idea that Rav Victor Miller's said. He said that, was it true that the Chafetz Chaim, he was asked, didn't have any friends? Was that true? Doesn't it say that you should acquire for yourself a friend? It's so important that you should even be willing to pay. That's right. So he says, "Oh, chavruso misusa gemara and tainis chav gimel." So he says, a chaver doesn't mean what you think it means. A friend, it means someone who. It could also mean that, but it means someone who helps you. He helps you in business. Let's say you have a partner. He helps you make money, but after the day is finished, you forgot about him. You don't call him up late at night. You start chatting for all hours. You don't tell him about all your private ideas. He's a chaver in business. That's all. And if you have a chaver in learning, so he's your friend when it comes to learning. He's your friend who helps you in the business of learning. A friend isn't just someone who you just schmooze with and you'll waste your life. It's not what it is. Even a husband and a wife, they're not completely friends, so to say. They live separate lives. The Chafetz Chaim was a very, very busy person. He helped everyone. He was kind to everyone. But he didn't have these friends that we're talking. He didn't have these friends that we're talking about over here. Just the purpose of having a friend of just being busy. He had one important friend, Hashem. He was busy. He was busy with Hashem. That was his true friend. The truth is, the simple of this explanation of this mission, according to Rabbi is to have an actual friend. But we have to realize the reason for an actual friend is essentially the same idea: spiritual growth. Hashem can be one's friend, but people are naturally social. And one social interaction, the time one socializes has to be limited, like we saw in the previous Mishna, though. Right? It's anyone. Don't talk too much. We're in this world for a limited amount of time, and we have to utilize the time that we're here in this world. You know what the Shla says? A kaneh. Kaneh could also mean a writing instrument, like a quill, a reed, a pen. One's pen should be your biggest friend. You got to write down all the chidushim, all the Torah ideas. Write down. Your biggest friend has to be your pen. Nowadays, typing, same exact idea. And by the way, you know what the stipler says? When you write something or type it, it counts as 4 times you reviewed it. 4 times chazar. That's what the stipler says. You know what the Gemara says? The Gemara says in Psachim and Dafnun, praiseworthy. Someone who comes here to the next world and his learning is in his hands. Question: why did it say that his learning is in his hands? It should have said that his learning is in his brain. Why did it say Talmud b'yado? You know what the Marsha says in Baba Basra Daf Yod? Iker limud ksiva sadu lakach nikrei talmidu chachamim sefarim. The Marsha says. You hear the Marsha? The main learning that a person does is what? Is through his writing. That's why the Talmidei Chachamim, the scholars, are called sefarim, scribes. What a wonderful Marsha. That's the pen of the person's friend. Say one idea over here. What does it mean, judge everyone favorably? Put that line in the Mishna. Very important. You know what Rabbi Jimmy Bartanura says? He says that someone who's a Russian, he says that someone who's wicked, yeah, he could be judged unfavorably. The Gemara in Shabbos says, someone who suspects kosher people, he should get lashed. He should get lashed. Yeah? That's only if someone's kosher. It's implied from there that what? Someone who suspects someone who's a Russia is not going to get lashed. You hear the difference? Rashi says that anything that we hear, we should assume that he had a good intention. He's a regular person. Yeah? You understand? When the Mishna says to judge everyone favorably, that means it depends on the person. If he's a Rasha, that's already something else. Rashi says if he's wicked, Rashi says a regular person, assume that he had good intentions. And if we judge other people that way, we're going to get judged this way as well. Look at them in Shabbos and Kuf Chav Zayim. A lot over there gets discussed. It's measure for measure. Over here, Mida can I get Mida. We judge other people positively, we'll get judged that way positively back. Rambam says we have to judge an average person favorably. An average person. We have to judge a tzaddik, a righteous person, favorably, even if it seems that he did something bad. It looks like what he did was bad. We have to judge him favorably. We have to judge the Russia unfavorably, even if we saw that what he did was good. So it depends who the guy is. In other words, you could have a pious person, a righteous guy. He goes into McDonald's on Yom Kippur with the tattoo on his head that says "Bleep everyone." Yeah, you got to judge him favorably. An average person is different, though. One last idea while I'm with this. Are these statements of the Mishnah connected? We have 3 ideas. Number 1, we have this idea of acquiring for yourself a friend. Number 2, we have a Selach Rav, right? Make yourself a rabbi, acquire a friend. Now we have a Havidan called in Kassos, judge everyone favorably. What's the connection between these 3 statements? According to my humble opinion, a point for your rabbi for yourself means you got to learn from rabbi. You got to learn halachos from a rabbi. You got to learn Torah from a rabbi. You could also ask personal questions. Afterwards, you have to kinel chacham. Acquire a friend. You got to know how people are going, what's going on in the world. The rabbis don't necessarily all know all these things. Friends will know. Then you could judge everyone favorably. Because now you already learned from the rabbi how to judge and who should be judged favorably, and you already know how people go. So now you know how to judge people favorably, probably. That's my explanation to the Mishna. You want to get in? Yeah. What do you want to add?
When you said before in the beginning, like like learning with revolve, does that mean let's talk about that if I had to only learn one room, that to have more than
Right. So that's definitely there's a big elaboration just to stick with one. So it depends what it is though. You stick with one, that's when it comes to Gemara. Depends exactly what you're learning and how you're doing it. Right? If you're learning Gemara from a lot of different rabbis, so a lot of times it's not going to fit in your mind as well. You have to know exactly. You have to know yourself. The truth of the matter is, but when it comes to certain things, you got to follow one rabbi, not necessarily just learning Gemara. When it comes to certain areas, you got to just stick with one rabbi and that's it, because you're going to get opposite answers sometimes. That's what it's about. You got to stick with one rabbi that you believe in, you hold of, and that's it. Or else you're going to get in trouble.
Well, sometimes when I have a shayla, I just ask multiple rabbanon.
If you're just curious, you could ask multiple rabbanim. But if it's
Piskei Teshuvos, he brings down every single.
right, so that's when you have to ask the rabbi. After you learn something, you learn a sugya, and you see it's a machlokes at the end of the day. How do we hold? So that's when you got to ask the rabbi. But if you're going to do that now with 20 different people and then get 20 different answers, that's not going to be good. That's not going to be good. You have to have one rabbi to go to for halacha, and what he says is bottom line. Assuming that he's qualified, he learned the topic well, and he's capable of giving a good ruling. Yeah.
This shuir is a shuir in a shuir.
Yeah. That means this we're learning about. This is officially we're going through Pirkei Avos over here, right? I'm writing a sefer on Pirkei Avos. I got it in front of me. I've got 40 pages on the first Mishna over here. On the first, 6 Mishnayos of the Masechta. A shuir and a shuir means we digress to the topic of learning about Sefarim because Rashi brought up a point, which is Kanelach Chaver is going on Sefarim. So we see from this that a sefer is called a friend. From that, we went into a digression, a tangent on Sefarim. And by the way, I didn't get to finish because we didn't get to discuss the topic. Rashi's second explanation, when he says Kanelach Chaver is going on an actual friend. And from there, Rashi continues and talks about learning by yourself versus someone else. And therefore, we're going to have another shuir within another shuir, which is a separate shuir that I wrote. Is it better to learn by yourself with a chavrusa or with a group in a group setting? So that's what I meant, a shuir within a shuir. This thing on Sefarim, this is an independent shuir. There's nothing to do with the Mishna. Just coming in as a tangent. That's what I meant.
You're a chavrusa.
I'm a chavrusa. I'm a magid shuir. I'm also that's right.
Yeah, but like when we're speaking before about shipping, that I looked on one of the other stuff and like seen like rush shipping 30 minutes, $106.
Yeah, that's if it's rushed. You could also just just go to bump.
Should you just pay for sure you pay the expensive shipping even for myself?
Regular shipping is not that expensive. Number one. Number two, you could just drive to Borough Park to get it. Number three is that we already saw that nowadays Derech Lamuna says that you cannot use Meiser for Sefarim.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, the Shach says you could, but nowadays you can't because back then it was expensive and stuff. Now it's not. Next question.
Rebbi has a list of like people.
I personally write a list now, and because I read that, yeah, that's right. I write a list, or else it would get lost. Wouldn't know who I went to. I wouldn't remember.
I actually wanted to.
Sure.
To me, a sefer that is like all like gematrias from something.
Yes, it's a great sefer. Gematria cone. Gematria is 1 through 5,000.
Specify.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, we good. I need a such sefer. I'm very into gematrias.
Okay.
Rebbi,
Yeah.
Rebbi know like the reason of the palm of the piece that he told you should get that that sefer even just for that one reason?
Yeah, because one idea is worth it.
That one idea.
No, it doesn't say. Doesn't
Like,
say.
like you know,
Say.
like my chin really always says, if you didn't know this halacha, it was worth it coming.
That's right. That's right. Same idea.
Rabbi, does someone need to have no idea how to retire does he still need to have that library?
Okay. The idea is, I want to answer that question two ways. Yes, you should have it based on what we discussed. And I also want to answer that you weren't here when we learned the introduction, but in the first opening line of the introduction to Pirkei Avos, the Stipler was quoted saying, someone who never learned any Torah and wants to start learning Torah should learn Pirkei Avos from beginning to the end. He said Pirkei Avos has within it many foundations of Judaism. It's a yesod, and you should know the entire Masechta well. I know you should know the entire Masechta well. So you have Pirkei Avos, and you have the Sefarim anyways, and eventually, hopefully, you'll be able to use them.
Like Hashem was his only friend. Are you not supposed to like compare Hashem to people?
Yeah, but it's the idea that don't just spend hours and hours just schmoozing and talking and wasting time. Don't spend more time with Hashem through learning Torah, through doing mitzvahs, through davening. That's the idea.
Like Rebbi, where's your furniture?
Yeah, you said I'm a traveler in this world. Where's your furniture? You're a traveler, so too I'm a traveler. Yeah.
Traveler, I'm learning.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Rabbi, I just heard that story recently.
Yeah, it's a good story. It's a good story. All right. So next session in Mitzvah Hashem, we're gonna have to discuss this idea about is it better to learn Torah by yourself with the chavrusa, with the chabura, and why, and all the sources. Let's take a look at the schedule.
Go to Rabbi Sai, subscribe, and watch every single video.
That's the Eiger. Watch it and learn.
This is why technology was created.
That's right. That's right.